Good morning, good afternoon, guys, and happy Friday. We made it. It is the end of the week. Congratulations, guys. The weekend is ahead of us. But before we do, I wanted to end this week on a bang, and I've got a fantastic guest joining me today. I'm so excited to get to chat to him and hear his recommendations. But before I bring him on, let me say hello to everybody. So we have got Philip Ademic. Good afternoon, love. We have got the Bash Bros. We have got Mark and Chris. Hello, gentlemen. Good to see you. We have got Nicole, the blind mage. Hello, sweetheart. I hope you have a good day in class. Let's see who else has joined us. We have got Arwen Avalon. Hello, my love. Good morning. Nearsighted Cyclops. Good to see you as always. Good morning. Colin P. Smith. Good afternoon. And Zadman Walking 55. Good morning to you. Good morning. Let me scroll down and see who else has joined us. It skipped on me. The Geek Inside. Happy friggin' Friday. Hey, good to see you. Good morning. Let's see who else has joined us. We've got some North Poopers Cuba. Good morning, Robert Linden. Good afternoon, Punk Waddle. Good to see you. Hey guys, welcome everybody. Andrew 46 and 2 and Gun Bunny. Hello, lovely. And Keely Chow. Roll Tide, Keely. Makuba 76. Hello, love. And Sit Room. Good morning to you. Live Spec Linux Laptop. It's always good to see you as well. And kicking it off already, we have got super chats and super stickers, so thank you. Big thank you to Mexican Iron Man who sent us a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Papi. He says, I don't even know the difference between manga and anime. I know that I love classic comics, but I need to read something new. So teach me, lead me the way. I'll give this Japanese stuff an opportunity. Absolutely. That's exactly what I want to do today. So, guys, my guest and you guys are going to be my teacher because this is one of the subjects that I admit I don't know that much about. So, I'm very excited to get to learn. And we also had a, oops, $10 super sticker from Chris Persia. Thank you. Thank you to my Bash Bro. And it's a Shiba Inu with fans. Thank you, darling. Thank you so very, very much. Chris, you shouldn't have, but I appreciate you. Thank you. So, let me bring on my awesome guest. I'm very, very excited to get to talk to him because this is a gentleman who knows his anime. He's been a fan for a long time. So, let me bring on Golgo13, aka Brandon Wolfe. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Purple Valkyrie. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well.
That's
Welcome.
good to hear. Thank you so much for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to talk about a thing that I have been in and watched for a very long time.
Excellent. As I say, when I kind of came up with this idea, I needed someone that knew what they were talking about, who knew what they liked, and who could give solid recommendations. And I thought, I know the man for this job. So big thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Now, I've dabbled a little bit in manga. I've had some recommendations over the years. I really enjoyed the Castlevania that was on.
Yes,
Um,
Castlevania is a good one.
I've seen Kill Kill, which I actually really enjoyed. I was surprised.
You got one on me.
Um,
That's one I haven't seen yet.
and Full Metal Alchemist was another one that I really enjoyed. So
Yeah, those are
I've
those
I've
are all very
dabbled.
good.
I've dabbled, but I need my horizons expanding. So right off the bat, what would your recommendation be for someone who doesn't really know anime but would really like to get into it?
Well, there are a lot of them to choose from, and there are basically several different iterations or several different generations of anime. You have anime that started back in the 60s and the 70s. If you want to go back that far, you could go with Astro Boy. That one is basically more or less the foundation of what comes later. In the 70s, there's one series that does come to mind, and it's one that did touch me in a way when I was a teenager, because I remember seeing it on Sci-Fi Channel when they had their Festival of Animation once a year, and it was the Galaxy Express 999 or 39. That and the adjacent to it, which is Captain Harlock. It basically is about a show. There's a show about a boy that suffers the loss of his mother, decides that he wants to go to a planet where the machines can basically turn him into a robot to be able to live forever. And in order to get there, you have to hop on the Galaxy Express 39, which is more or less a space train. And who should happen to be there but a replica of his mother to help guide him on it and to go through the adventures of it. It's a great series. They from what I remember, they did make a condensed movie of it, but it is a series and it is available online. You just have to look for it, both in subtitled and dubbed.
And that's another thing that I was going to bring up with you. I know a lot of people, they are either all dub or they're all sub. Do you have a preference when it comes to that sort of thing?
The snob in me says subtitled because you want to hear the original language. But as I've gotten older, my eyes get a little tireder. There's a lot of the dubs out there that are really good, and there are some that are really bad. So for me, it's a mixed bag. If you have the ability to read quickly and still follow the action, subtitle all the way. If you don't, or you just don't want to devote that much brain power to it, then go with a dub. And as I said, I've seen both with certain things. Anymore, because of everything, I stick with dubbed myself. That's my thing. I prefer that.
That's pretty cool. I think of all the ones that I've seen, it was subtitled. And literally Dan says I've never seen a dub that's decent. So
that is one of those. It's one of those very touchy subjects. And yes, there are some dubs that are absolutely atrocious, and there are others that for me they work. Or that's how I first watched the show was with the English dubbing over it. So it's all a matter of how you started and what your preference is towards that. So either way is great, but I've got to go dub for me.
Nice. Obviously, since we're kind of delving into it, we'll have a lot of crossover with the manga and anime.
Yes.
Now we were talking in the green room, said that you're definitely more in the anime camp rather than the reading camp.
Yeah. The comic book thing and all that was my younger brother's thing. He always got into that. Whereas with me, not so much. I always preferred movies. I have always preferred animation over that. But there are definitely a lot of these that do have both. Like pretty much all the BattleTech, Macross, Gundam stuff, as far as I know, they do have their origins in the comic book or the manga. Then pretty much any of the other things like My Hero Academia, Trigun, Ghost in the Shell, most of those all came from the books came first. The series and the animation came second.
Right. And we were also talking, obviously, there's some extremely long-running anime and manga.
Yes, there are
some of these. One Piece, for example, has been going on for so long. It would be hard for somebody who isn't familiar with the series to find a jumping in point unless they went all the way back to the beginning. And that's quite a commitment, I would imagine.
Yeah, with that one, from last I saw, at least 14 seasons. They've got roughly in the neighborhood of 20 episodes a season, starting back in 1999. And of course, when you go back that far, it's all going to be hand drawn, and it's going to be in the old style 4:3 aspect ratio, or at least most of it is. But further along you get, they start switching to using the computer to do the drawing. Not quite, it just doesn't have the same feel as a fully hand drawn show. And then of course switching aspect ratios go into a more widescreen. So yeah, it can be a little jaunting and a little jarring if you're not careful.
I thought that would be the case. I mean, obviously, the longer running a series, there's going to be changes over time. I know a lot of things like Dragon Ball Z, for example, has gone through a lot of different voice actors over the years.
Oh yeah, there's one that has its roots back in the 80s, and yeah, so many different variations of it out there. That's also a good one. My one nephew, he absolutely loves the current one, and that's one of those that's just a little harder for me to get into because of the fact that it is more for kids than it is for me as a 40-something adult.
Would you say, kind of jumping in on that with anime, there's a very kind of definite, this is for adults, this is for kids,
Oh, absolutely.
splits between them, because some of them obviously are very, very adult.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. There's you pretty much with anime, it runs the gamut. You've got everything from comedy series, action adventure to full on horror. Then you have shows that deal around teenagers and going through school, the various types of schools, to even just movies that are, or shows that deal with just the, as they call it, the slice of life.
Mhm.
It, there's pretty much something for everyone. As far as a good place to start, if you're wanting to do something or start somewhere that is family friendly, for those of you that do have families and don't want to fully expose them to all the blood and guts and animated bodies, I would recommend pretty much anything from Studio Ghibli. Those guys, they are the masters as far as both in the traditional sense. They tend to have the most fluid and the most consistent animation for the genres they do, and the movies they've done over the years. My Neighbor Totoro, that's a great
Mhm.
one. Kiki's Delivery Service and Howl's Moving Castle. Those are three that I could easily recommend because my kids have seen all three of them. And then for an honorable mention, Ponyo. They're
Oh,
all great stories. They're all adaptations of books or original stories, and they're just fun. You don't have to worry about what they're going to be exposed to, other than a great story.
mhm. Absolutely. I remember the first time I ever saw Howl's Moving Castle, and it was beautiful. The animation, the characters,
Yeah,
I loved it. And
it's
that's
so different,
it's
so
kind of my
different than
jumping
most
in
everything.
point. And Spirited Away, I would add to that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Spirited Away is good, and we want to talk about if we want to talk about a show that there are two movies that do come to mind. Let's see. There are different styles within the animation itself. There are some of them that go for a more realistic look, and then there are some that jumble it up, where they'll maybe have most of the parts of the show be very realistic, and then when something screwy happens, they'll go to a more cartoonish type look and feel. That's another thing with the Japanese and how they do things. They can have a single still, but the way that they pan it and the way that they've designed it, you can sense the motion, you can feel the motion, the soundtracks they do to that really helps bring that home. So they're able to do a lot of things with some cases very minimalistic amount of drawing to it, and that's something that gets lost with some of the American or even the European animators. Sometimes they like to overdo it or overthink it, whereas the Japanese, especially with some of these older shows where they were on a budget, yeah, they did a lot with very little. But going into shows that deal with post-apocalyptic hells, Grave of the Fireflies is one of the premier ones from Studio Ghibli. That one's extremely haunting because it's about two children that survive having the bomb dropped on them back in the 40s,
mhm.
and their experiences after that, all the way up to modern classic, and probably in a lot of circles it's probably the singular best movie ever created, and that's Akira, depending upon how you pronounce it.
Oh, I remember watching that film. That film left an impression on me. I think
Yes,
it's because I did not know what I was getting into watching it.
that's one of those that you've got to go through several times to really fully get it, because it's got so many layers, so much nuance, and the best part about it is it's fully hand drawn. They invented techniques with that movie that are still used today, like in the movie Tron, or the more recent Tron movie with the light cycles and the light streaking. They did that fully by hand.
Oh my
That's
God.
not easy to do, and to make it be perfectly consistent, the amount of time that it would take to do that is just mind-boggling. So that one's a definite. You have to see
Yes.
that one, and you probably have to see it more than once to get it. And that one is one that I
It's
would
adult
probably
as
say,
well.
yeah, I would say see the subtitled, because the original English dub was done away with when they released it on DVD and the current Blu-ray versions. Now the old Laserdisc one, which is how I saw it, the dubbing on that's what I remember. So the current one, the dubbing didn't quite gel with me on that one.
And Mexican Iron Man sends us a $5 super chat. Thank you, sweetheart. He says, "Wait, what? Adult want snap? I mean, top 3." We will have to send you that one via DM. I think Mexican Iron Man. I have found a few whilst researching the subjects. Definitely,
Well,
they
yeah,
are
you can
they
get
are
into a
out there.
rabbit hole with this if you're not careful. Yeah, those two are great. As I say, Galaxy Express 999, that's one of my personal favorites. That's one of the older ones. Yeah, Evangelion, that one, the original one of that is great. And of course, Netflix has redone that. And I haven't seen that, so I'll withhold judgment. But when we talk about, the types of shows, the variety of shows, we've got the ones, what it means to be human, the post-apocalyptic survival. Then you have shows of what it means to be a hero, and My Hero Academia is the perfect example of that. It's a teenage coming of age story about a kid who wants so bad to be more than he is, even though he doesn't have it. He doesn't have that talent. In that show, probably spoiling a little bit since you haven't seen it, but in that show, most everybody is born with basically a superhero power of some type, some of them more impressive than others.
Mm-hmm.
But Izuku Midoriya was born without it. And that hurts him really bad as a kid. But his drive is so strong that it catches the eye of the number one superhero, which is All Might. And then from there, the story goes between All Might as his mentor, and Midoriya as the student, learning how to use what he eventually gets. So I won't say any more about that, but that's a great series. I highly recommend that, and that's one of those that they have more done with the manga than what they have with the series. The series is only up about, if I remember correctly, about a quarter to maybe a third of the way. There's just a ton more of it out there that they haven't put the celluloid yet. The old filmmakers lingo there.
So again, this is one of those kind of ones that it's going to take a while for you to get into.
They just started season 5. To me, it didn't take very much to get into. It's just, with only being in season 5, they're still in year 1 of hero school. I mean, that's how much they've jam-packed into it. And there's a ton of things that happen during this time, but it's great. And the 2 movies that they've done on it, they're great.
That's one I will definitely add to my list. And Psychodorf9, thank you, sweetheart. He sends us a $5 super chat. He says, a person could switch to anime and never watch another Western movie. Would you agree with that? Do you think that this is the way forward at the moment?
As far as the current environment with how Hollywood works, absolutely. The animation houses of the U.S. and Europe, they do not hold a candle to what the Japanese can do, in my opinion, both in style and most definitely in subject matter. The one thing about a lot of these shows, if there's a lot of them out there that have very strong female leads or very strong female co-stars. My Hero Academia, for example, half of the class that Midoriya gets put in with is female, and every single one of them that's in there had to prove themselves to get into there, and are just as good, and in some cases better than their male counterparts. So, yeah, you want to talk about true equality? Yes, My Hero Academia is a good example of that, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that one's way out there. That's a left field if you want to go into something that's a little different. That's for sure.
That's why I kind of wanted to do the show today, because there is so much scope. You can go from, as you say, dystopian sci-fi, you can go to fantasy, you can go to horror, you can go to kid-friendly, and
yes.
everything in between. If you can think of a subject or even a point in time. Somebody mentioned the history one. Which one was it? Let me scroll back up. I think it was there we go. Arwen Avalon says for the history buff, check out Hetalia. Hysterical.
That's one I haven't heard of. But then again, there's a lot of them that I'd like to see but haven't seen, and just time. And talking about fantasy, Berserker. That one is a great one. I just started it, and so far I have absolutely enjoyed it. And it is such a travesty that that the creator of that series died basically as my older brother. Was only 14 years older than me.
Wow.
That's sad. And another one in that field that's very popular, and I remember seeing basically late night infomercials for it, was Records of Lodoss War.
Okay, that's one I haven't heard of. What's that one about?
From what I recall about it and what I was told about it, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings, but Japanese.
Okay.
Kind of. It's got that type of vibe and feel from what I've been told. I haven't seen it either. It's one of those that I should be, bad Brandon. I should have seen it, but I haven't yet. But when we're talking about Westerns and actual Western type shows, there are two movies that have a very distinct Western feel. Trigun, the $6 billion man. Vash the Stampede is one of my favorite characters. He's so out there. And then Cowboy Bebop. Those two from the 90s are highly recommended, and arguably they always tend to be up there as far as some of the best from that era.
I've heard those. There's a couple that have definitely kind of time and time again get recommended. So it would be those two, Bleach. A lot of my friends are huge fans of that. We mentioned Dragon Ball because that was kind of like a jumping in point for a lot of people. As you say, because it started off as kind of cartoony for kids, and then there were things like Yu-Gi-Oh as well, which I think got a lot of people in. And then for girls, it was like Sailor Moon.
Yep. Sailor Moon's been on for forever and a day in multiple variations. Yeah, and when we're talking about leading ladies that are serious, complete, and utter ass kickers, Ghost in the Shell is it for me. The major is Dream Woman type level of awesomeness. And then there are shows that go into the ridiculous. So I've got to mention Lupin the Third. That one is a hilarious series set of movies, and they're still making them every so often today. So that's another one that started back in the 70s and is still going today in some form.
One that I saw that sounds pretty cool is oh, I've lost it now. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. So Seven Deadly Sins sounded pretty cool. I kind of like this concept of that, and Sword Art Online really appealed as a gamer because that sounded like something that I could definitely get into.
That's something, that series or that style of series is something that's only come about just within the past 15 years or so because of the internet. And speaking of a show that that deals with internet life and going over how people can dive too far into it and also what it means to be human. There's one series from the late 90s called Serial Experiment Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen it once, and it was actually at my university's anime club. They showed it, and of course they were subtitle only, so it was a little harder for me to follow. But from what I recall about that one was a massive mind trip. But there are a lot of themes that were touched upon then that are extremely relevant now, especially with the internet being as it is now, so ubiquitous and almost to the point where you could walk around with a computer unit on you and your VR headset or a augmented reality headset and just be fully in the world and yet fully in the net.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? It's kind of scary to think that how close we actually are to being able to just live a completely online life.
It's scary. And with Ghost in the Shell, that one really touches upon both what it means to be human, but also the future of how the internet or information networks are going to affect our lives. And with it, it also touches upon as what it means to be human. But if you live your life longer within a artificial construct, in this case, a shell, are you still human? Could you consider yourself still human? What is a human? And the original movie touches on that very heavily, and I highly, 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 highly recommend to see that. And if you can find the original cut of it, that's great. The DVD of it's great. They did do a re-release of it and kind of a touch up to it, which was Ghost in the Shell 2.0. I didn't like it as much because they did redo some of the heavier scenes that could have been augmented by CGI, and they did. It looks okay, but to me it was jarring. So if you can find either the DVD or the Blu-ray with the original cut, I highly recommend to do that.
Is this something that kind of happens when it's brought over to a Western audience? Do they get kind of cut up and sanitized a little bit, or do they generally translate as seen? I would imagine some of the scenes would be pushing it a little bit too far for an audience.
There are things that you can do with animation, even back then with hand-drawn, that you absolutely can't do either with practical effects and it not very realistic looking with CGI. The Ghost in the Shell movie that was Western produced is trash in comparison to the original animation, or even to the series that they did back in the 2000s, the standalone Complex series, or even the one that Netflix just did. Even though it's all CGI done instead of traditional hand drawn, that one's probably still going to be better. I haven't seen that one because I told Netflix to take a hike because of a certain movie with the fruit name.
Yes, so that I would agree with, absolutely. Yes, I think I think you're among company there with that decision. I to be honest, I don't regret it. Battle Hymn 63 brings up a good one, and one that I have seen, Vampire Hunter D. Absolutely.
There are 2 movies of that. Now, that one is one that was originally a more or less a full book, and there are several books in the series of Vampire Hunter D. The first movie that they did was an adaptation of one of the later books, and if you want to talk about a movie that had a very big, profound effect, I remember seeing that as 12, 13-year-old kid, and it definitely is not something that kids should have seen. It's extremely violent. But the story behind it, D as a character is one of those great stoic characters, and the more you learn about him is just awesome. Highly recommend to see that one. And that's another one of those that was originally done in 4:3. They didn't do it in widescreen for theatrical release, and then cropped it down because of VHS at the time. It is 4:3. But the second movie, that one's almost 20 years old now. That one, it's Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. You can tell the difference in the animation style from how things were done in the 80s versus how they were done in the late 90s, early aughts. They're both fantabulous films, both highly recommended to see.
Yes, I've seen both of them. I've got to admit, of the 2, I prefer the first one just for the look and feel of it. But as you say, fantastic characters.
And speaking of stuff from the 80s and 90s that I remember, the one that I remember seeing first was Voltron. There was their kid in my neighborhood that we did sleepovers and all that. His older brother had a tape or 2 of Voltron, and we watched the crap out of those, and it was so good and so much fun. Then if you want one that's ultra violent and definitely very 80s macho over the topness, Fist of the North Star. That's another great one.
Chris brings up this one. I think these ones are more kind of old school, I would imagine. So he's got Kimber the White Lion, Astro Boy, which you mentioned earlier, and Gatchaman, which I've never heard of. Macross, I vaguely recognise, but I have never seen. Dragon Ball, my brother's a big fan of, so I'm familiar with that one. And as you say, Fist of the North Star. Yeah,
Macross, Battletech Gundam. And I haven't seen a lot of them as much as I would like to, but Battletech was more or less the westernized version of several different animes, and from BattleTech sprung Macross, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. And legendary anime fan, JP fan, sorry, too, brings up another genre that we haven't kind of touched upon, top romance animes, would be Akumu, a Jimu Beach Story, Oh My Goddess, and Ayori Arashi.
And since I'm a guy, I'm not super big into that side of things. But yes, for the ladies out there, if you do want something that's a little more tame or something that's more dramedy, and or straight up romance, there's a ton of them out there. There are so many out there.
Robert Valinda says Macross is cool, but not as good as Gundam, though. I think
Yeah, Gundam is a bit newer, and that series basically still goes today, if I remember correctly.
so. Basically, whatever genre that you can think of, there is something that will be able to cater for what you're looking for. It's just a case of kind of doing research. And what I would imagine is once you find one that you like, there'll be maybe half a dozen others that are of a similar vein that you can then go on to.
Absolutely. Speaking of, there were three different series that are a little more obscure that I remember also seeing when I was a younger guy. The first one is Tenchi Muyo, the first movie. I love that movie, even though it's very campy in certain respects. It's great, and since then, I've now seen the original video animation series of it that they did back in the '90s of it, and it's funny, and I absolutely love it. I don't care who knows it. I love that series. It's so much fun. Another one that's very obscure, but I don't see why it should, because I really liked it. It also was shown during Sci-Fi's Festival of Animation one year with Tenchi, or it was the year later, one of the two, is Iria Zerum the Animation. It's basically about a female bounty hunter who's training to become a bounty hunter from her brother. They go on a mission to basically capture the space demon, who eventually escapes, causes havoc, and all sorts of things flow from there. That one is on Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, it's only a 6-episode series. I really like it. And the last one that's, to me, I absolutely loved to death. It was so funny, so different, was the Dominion Tank Police and the New Dominion Tank Police. It's, future dystopia, nightmare world, got to wear a mask outside to go anywhere. But this group of police officers that have tanks just going causing all sorts of havoc, trying to keep the city safe. I really like them, but they're not something that I hear anybody else really talk about or have seen or have anybody else seen. So a little more obscure, but they're great, or at least I think they are.
Robert Verlinden says Tank Police is great. And
Yes.
Louise has got a good question. She says, how do you feel about the hybrid American-Korean shows like The Last Airbender? Now, I know Airbender was very popular, definitely.
Yeah, the Airbender series and everything that's offshoots from that, they have been extremely popular. For me, they came out later, after I had basically lost interest in regular pay TV. So they started more when I was in my 20s, and I was off doing other things at that point. It's good when you can combine things. And Airbender has shown that, yes, you can make a decent hybrid with, a traditional Japanese style, or a hybrid between it and the Korean styles, and make a great series out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with it. And that also leads me back to Castlevania. Technically, Castlevania is a Japanese property. It's Konami. It's fully rooted with the Japanese. Yet the show is what I consider more of a hybrid, because it was the showrunners were American, and it was designed primarily for an American audience first, but animated in a more traditional Japanese style, even though it was all done on computers versus traditional hand-drawn. And that leads me to other shows that were like that I remember were from the old Marvel group, G.I. Joe, Transformers. They're American, but there are certain aspects of their animation that are very, very anime-esque. Even though they don't fully go that way, there are certain things you can see where they drew inspiration from to do it. So I call them anime adjacent.
Yes, so a lot of people would be, obviously, if they grew up in the 80s, they'd be a lot more familiar with those kind of cartoons. And I would
Yeah.
imagine then that was kind of like a stepping stone into the world of anime, and it would have just kind of gone from there for a lot of people who became fans.
Yeah, and it was that way for me.
Psychodorf, thank you, sweetheart. He says Magnetic Rose. That one I'm not familiar with. How about you?
I'm not familiar with that either, but I gotta say it. Psychodwarf 9! That ending was
Nice.
good.
I tried once, I failed, I would never do it again. But that was good.
Yeah, I don't have the vocal capabilities as the boss, so I won't do that again. But digging into what I'm doing now these days. Hey, Mags, it's good to see you.
Hello, sweetheart. Thank you, Mag. She's just become a member. Thank you, my love. Appreciate you. Thank you, darling.
Yeah, since I've gotten back into anime over the past few years, there are a few of them that I started to dive into, but didn't go that far. But I've really recommitted myself to it. The first one is this guy, Duke Togo, Mr. Golgo 13.
Yes, that's obviously being your name. I was going to ask, is that something that's had a huge impact on you? Is that kind of one of your top 5, top 3?
For me, it is. It's a movie that I did see the original movie when I was a teenager. It's Duke Togo is a very straightforward type of character. I've been going through the series and everything, and pretty much when it goes to him, he just is. There's no real backstory to him as far as how did he get training? Why does he get the training? How did he get into the profession? Why does he do what he does? He just is. And what he is one day super awesome, fantastic, taking out, the shysters of the world, working for various groups and organizations. And I just watched an episode from the series where if I had to classify him, I'd classify him as a bastard. Because the thing with him, he never misses. He always completes his objectives. But on the side thing, if he feels like there's somebody who's figured out his methods or is capable of tracking him or finding him, he'll take them out. And in the series, there's one, he's taken out several other snipers, another assassin that were hired to try and get him, a photographer trying to catch him right as he was pulling the trigger. Even though the photographer failed, surprise, surprise, he figured out how Golgo's mind works, and he takes him out.
Wow.
So yeah, even though they don't really dive much into the backstory of him, he is such a great straightforward story, a great character, and it's everything around him involving his job that drives the story and makes it really good. So yes, I would highly recommend to see the movie, the second movie, Queen Bee, and the series that was done in 2008, which was 50 episodes long. It's great.
And this is one that kind of really came out of left field for me, especially when the skull was made. I was wondering, I have no idea who this character is, but just seeing it kind of made me want to find out more about it.
Oh yes, that made me so happy. The boss knew exactly the one I was thinking of. That is the best shot that you could have done with him, and it exemplifies his skill and the ability and what they're trying to portray with him. Perfection. Taking a 2-kilometer shot with a 308, an enhanced 308 calibered rifle. Yeah, that was perfect.
It does look really cool, I've got to admit. And again, it's an example, I would imagine, of one of those kind of stoic protagonists that we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
And big thank you again to Psychodorf9. Thank you, sweetheart. He says, look up Phantom of the Opera, AMV, voiced by Sarah Brightman. That's Magnetic Rose. Okay, I will check that out. Thank you, sweetheart. Definitely. And we do have one more that I've just seen. Let me scroll up and grab it. Good morning and welcome to D. Oberg. Hello, sweetheart. He sends us a $5 super chat. Thank you. Thank you so much. He says, can a English only reader enjoy the Japanese language of Golgo 13 manga?
I would say so. I know that that particular series was originally done in book. In fact, Golgo 13 more or less is the Japanese version of Rambo in certain comparisons. Very very businesslike, very awesome. You know, we post Vietnam War we had, you know, we had Arnold, we had Stallone for our action movies. The Japanese had Duke Togo.
Hmm.
And yeah, as far as the books go and the manga series, I myself I haven't been able to find them and I haven't read them. I don't have them. But it's an older series, so there's tons of stuff out there. And yes, translated into English, you should be able to enjoy it immensely. And even if you don't get the translated in English, you could probably figure out, okay, Duke's going here, he's setting up the shot, oh, he's dead.
I think that's also the strong point with a lot of these series, obviously, because they are based on long-running books as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that you can kind of dig into, and we have touched on it as well in the past, obviously, because manga is doing so well because the Western comics have fallen off a cliff. I
Yes,
don't
that
think
they have.
there's a better time for anybody to kind of jump into and start reading, and that's another reason for doing this today. I'm getting a little bit disillusioned with, the mainstream comics with Marvel and DC. I talked with NB Geek the other day about great recommendations that were from, say, Image or Dark Horse, those kind. But manga is definitely something, at least for me, that I'm very, very curious about now.
Absolutely. And here's what I would suggest. Go to your library. The odds are they're going to have shelves full of them. And you know, with where I live here in Idaho, my library, and it's got a ton of books, but they have a whole two walls devoted to it that they've been able to get in. There's tons of it out there. It's very readily available. So it's
Hmm.
not like you have to really scour, really, search hard to find. Plus, it is a great read. All the current stuff they're doing is so superior, and unlike Disney, these people have source material to work with, and they do.
Absolutely. I mean, you just walk into any bookstore now, and the graphic novel section and comic book section is being diminished, and manga is taking over. And
Yeah, it's
um,
supply and demand.
yep.
If your stuff sucks, you're gonna get minimized. If it doesn't suck, you're gonna have a lot more to sell.
Hmm. Absolutely. And a massive, massive thank you to Mag. Thank you, sweetheart. She sent us a $5 super chat. Thank you. Jess, have you seen, heard of Ronin Warriors? Currently watching it now, going down memory lane with things I enjoyed when much younger.
It's one of those that I probably should have heard of, but it doesn't stick out in the mind. So I'll have to add that to my list of ones to search and to try and watch.
Absolutely. I'm not familiar with it, although I have heard of it. But if Mags recommends it, that's definitely one I'm going to add to my list as well. And guys, you are absolutely killing it in the chat today. I'm scrolling through trying to catch as many comments as I can, but you guys, with your recommendations, thank you. Um, Again, Gunslinger Girl, Black Cat, and Gunsmith Girl, worth a watch.
I have heard of Black Cat, and so yeah, though any of those sound absolutely fantabulous.
And Robert Verlinden, just to pick up on what we were just saying, says getting a manga published is hell. It's only the beginning because keeping up with the publishing is even more hell.
Yeah. Yeah, they tend to once they get started on it, they tend to turn them out pretty quickly. Well, manga pretty much was, it's their comic book. Comic books here come out, weekly, monthly, etc. Yeah, it can get very difficult to keep up with, especially with the wide variety of them that there are.
Absolutely. And hello, literally, Dan. Good to see you. They ask any thoughts on light novels they seem to be doing for the book industry, what manga is doing for the comic industry.
And once again, unfortunately, that's out of my wheelhouse. I've the reading thing I like to read, but I just don't have the time to be able to do that. But I'll take your word for it that that light novels are doing to the book industry what manga's doing to the comic book industry. And to be quite honest, Western culture, as far as books, illustrated or otherwise, they need a swift kick in the ass.
I
So
think so too. I'd love to think that this would be the kind of catalyst for them to kind of start giving, great content and start giving the customer what they want. Because as you
you hope
say,
so.
it is
Yeah,
supply and demand. If you're not getting it from where you used to go, people will look for something else. And if manga and anime are giving people what they want, more power to them.
absolutely.
And Alvin Avalon says if you want beautiful work, check out Sacred. The art is fantastic.
I will add that to my list to check out now. Now, as far as movies or series that I would recommend to, as far as a starting point for adults, not for kids. Absolutely not for kids. If you show your kids these shows, bad you, bad, bad. Let's put it that way. The first movie that I would recommend to start off with is Ghost in the Shell because it's great. Got to have Akira if you haven't seen it, or Akira. One that's talked about, but it's also one of those. It was more of a one and done type thing. Is Ninja Scroll. That movie is so good, set in feudal Japan, and if you like the Quentin Tarantino style of blood spurting, hey, there you go. And another one it's back in the it's an 80s one, so it's a little different. Wicked City. That's another one that I saw as a late teen with the guy that I used to work with and his fiance. They were heavy into heavy metal and computer gaming and anime, and that was one of those that yeah, it's worth seeing. It's got a great story, but definitely no kids. And then of course either of the Vampire Hunter movies. Those are all great starting points to as far as a movie, and then expanding from there. And then as far as the series goes, yeah, for the long haul, One Piece. If you want something that you'll be able to entertain yourself with for quite a while, as long as you can get through the initial phases, getting the setup, and then of course the transition from traditional animation to more computer done or computer aided, that's a good one.
Hmm. From what I've found with manga and anime, they're more willing to kind of push boundaries. They're
Yes.
not so scared to kind of center a story. So, as you say, if there is something you want that's more adult, it is out there to find. You're not going to have a watered down story. They're going to give it blood, guts, nudity, if that's. Um,
Yes, you can get plenty of blood, plenty of guts, and if you're looking for it, plenty of boobs.
mhm.
Yeah, it's out there. There's plenty of it.
And I,
As
for one, am more than okay with that.
well, as I said, with me having kids around, I've got to be a little more picky. And when we actually have them for the school year, I have to shut it down for a while. So the summer is when I really go hog wild and just do as much as I can. But the one that you can watch with them, My Hero Academia, even though it's a little risque in some of their outfits, it's nothing more than what they've probably seen already with the regular PG movie, assuming that you can even find a PG movie.
Yes.
But yeah, My Hero Academia, that one, it's only 4 or 5 seasons right now, but that one's going to be a long haul one. Golgo 13, that one, it's not very long, so you could get through it within a month. And then of course the Ghost in the Shell uh, standalone complex, the first two series that they did of it, it's about 52 episodes. Those are
Mhm.
all they're all great. As far as a modern one or one that just started that has a very interesting premise that I've seen the first two episodes, I liked it, but because of how much there is, it's just hard to devote the time. It's a series called Dr. Stone, and it's one of those series that's teen focused, or it starts with kids in school. But you've got this kid who's extremely brilliant with all the sciences, and then something happens to the world where everyone gets turned to stone, but they didn't die. They're stuck, conscious in the stone, and thousands of years pass before a few of them start to break out.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. And Speak for the Dead, I know, is also a huge expert when it comes to these shows and manga. And he recommends really into shoujo anime right now. So I would definitely take any recommendations from Speaker, because I know for a fact he knows what he's talking about too.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit, I know one that was huge and kind of took over, especially for kids. It was Pokemon.
Yes, yes, it did. And Pokemon's fun. You know, you can say what you want about it as far as the style of it. That one is a multi-combo style. It's definitely cartoony, not in the realistic form, but it also just breaks down into the silly, the static faces, the constant back and forth when they're trying to make an extra point, or being able to use just maybe one or two shots to convey motion.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great. My daughter loves Pokemon, and I've tried watching some of the original episodes. A little hard to do because of how rough it is. The more current ones are a little better, but yeah, that's another one that if you got kids and you like Pokemon, yeah, it's fun.
Mhm. And JM Chris says Pokemon is more cartoons than anime. I
Yeah,
would agree with that, but I remember back in the day, it was something different, and it kind of really, well, it took the world by storm, obviously, and still is, because there's Pokemon everywhere still.
yeah.
And Max says the original Pokemon series was great. Also, loves Digimon. I remember Digimon. Yeah, they were both
Yep.
on pretty much
Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, any of those that are based upon either a card game or
Monster
you know,
Hunter. Yeah.
yeah.
hmm Absolutely. So, if you got a top five that you could give us, that you would
Man.
recommend.
Ooh. If I was going to do a top 5 of what I've seen, what I remember, if I go with movie and influence, Akira, Ghost in the Shell,
hmm
Ninja Scroll, I'm going to cheat, both Vampire Hunter D movies, and Wicked City. Those are the ones that I remember as a younger guy that I've seen more recently and that I would highly recommend. As far as the series goes, yeah, Cowboy Bebop, got to do that. You got to do Trigun. Those are some of the best from the 90s. Current My Hero Academia, I think that one is more or less a must watch. I would recommend to watch it. Of course, my namesake, Duke Togo. Definitely Golgo 13. It's a great series. And then if I was going to do one other, I'd say Berserker.
Oh, okay. So that's a real kind of across the board mix. And I think that's why I'm so kind of interested in getting into this, because there's just so many genres that you can jump into. As you
Yeah.
can say, we can go from like sci-fi to horror to fantasy to romance to something more kiddie, and there's something you're going to enjoy about all of these different series. Mrs. Dadman Walking 55, hello, sweetheart. She says fruit baskets. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. So cells at work, Detective Conan, JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, Gatchaman, Bacchanal, Berserk, Cowboy Bebop, Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood. Nice.
Yeah, there are a few on there that I would like to have seen, and a few of them that are pretty old. Gotcha Man is an older series. And there's
And
another one from that same time frame called Eight Man After that's also an interesting watch. Talking about basically what it means to be human, getting getting transformed from being a human into a cybernetic being and not knowing about it.
I kind of really loved that idea. There was a couple more that I was going to bring up that I've been recommended over the past few months. So, One Punch Man, both the books and the series apparently are brilliant. Um, Again, it's that kind of satirical look at the superhero genre.
Yeah, yeah, that it
Uh,
is.
I know again, he's a very stoic character, which is supposed to be quite funny with the kind of scenarios that he gets into. So I'm kind of looking forward to trying that one. And the other one was oh gosh, what was it? Attack on Titan.
I tried to watch Attack on Titan. I made the mistake of watching it with my wife. She's very picky about the stuff that she'll watch. That one, it's very well done. From everything that I've seen about it, it's probably one of the better ones, if not a top 5 from the past 10 years.
Mhm.
But the premise of it, ah, for me, it's a harder one for me to grasp or to get into because of basically because of what it is. So yeah.
I've heard good things about it. I've watched a couple of episodes, but I think it's going to be one of those I'm going to really have to sit down and kind of concentrate on.
I
But
would think so. Yeah.
I've definitely heard good things about it. And a massive, massive thank you to Punkwaddle. Thank you, sweetheart, for joining us. Let me see. They have joined as a berserker. Thank you. Welcome to you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Um, there was one more thing I was going to ask. I mean, obviously, over the years, it's changed. Do you think that this is going to continue to be as popular as it is with the current climate, or do you think it's going to peak and something else is going to take its place? Because it seems to be, um, if people love anime, if people love manga, it's something that sticks with them.
That it does. As far as the future, it depends upon if they are successful in holding off the wokeness of current Western civilization. As it stands right now, none of their stuff even comes close to being woke, and that's great. I know that with groups like Funimation and Crunchyroll, since they're two of the bigger streamers out there for anime, although there's other places where you can get all their shows without having to pay, but you'll have to search for that yourself. As far as them, I know that I've heard that Funimation has been trying to exert some control, some of the more Western-ish type influences of the woke. But I've also heard that the Japanese parliament has taken up measures to protect their intellectual property and prevent it basically from being bastardized by Western influences. And I hope they do that. The Japanese are they're very different from the rest of us. If you live in Japan, you're Japanese. If you go there to visit, that's great. But if you try to migrate there, they're very stringent about basically you observing their customs, their traditions, their everything. They don't take kindly to people coming in and trying to tell them what to do. And I don't blame them. That's the way it should be. So, they get in some of the woke circles, they get called ists and phobes and Yahtzees because they do that. And for me, I hope they do that, if for no other reason, to maintain their artistic vision. What makes them them? The second that they try and start breaking away from that or start including any form of this woke nonsense, that's when it's going to start declining.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at it, I think for them, they are in a golden age right now. The stuff that they're coming out with is top notch. It's better than everything else, and even the stuff from the past is vastly superior to anything being made from Western studios right now.
That I would agree with, absolutely. And as we've said before, people are crying out for something new. They've become disillusioned with what they used to love because it's been corrupted, it's been changed.
Yeah, it has been corrupted.
I can't think of a better time for people to, check this out. So massive, massive thank you today, guys. I've had so many recommendations added to my list. I don't know where to start.
Well, just pick one. You can't go wrong with any of them. You really can't.
And a big, big thank you to legendary anime JP fan too. Thank you, sweetheart, for joining us as well. You are very, very welcome here.
Yes, thank you for joining up.
You know what I think would be kind of fun? Down the line, once I've watched a few of these, maybe kind of do a top 5 each. That would be kind of interesting to see which of the actual genres I kind of gravitate towards.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm obviously a big fan of sci-fi and fantasy, so I would imagine that's where I'm going to go. But I also love horror as well. So that should be kind of interesting to see which ones jump
Death
out
Note.
at me. Oh my gosh, Death Note. Yes, Death Note I've actually seen and I loved, because I love the moral, doing this for the greater good. it's doing something that you think is actually heroic when
Yes.
you're actually becoming the villain yourself. I love that kind of moral ambiguity.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot of catching up to do and a lot of them to go through myself. So absolutely, that would be so much fun. When you're ready, let me know. I'll make sure that I catch as many of it as I can, then throw together a new top 5 for me, both for a movie and for a series, because I like to separate them, because the series can either go on forever or it could be way too short.
Absolutely.
And with Trigun and with Cowboy Bebop, they're too short. There need to be more of it. But sometimes all you need is just that one series to tell your story. With Trigun, that was the case.
Short and sweet. Absolutely.
Short and sweet, to the point, all great, no filler.
And a massive thank you to Max Relax. Thank you, sweetheart. He sends us a €5 super sticker, and it's a pair, and it says "Keep it up." We will absolutely keep it up. And you guys in the chat have been absolutely brilliant today, so thank you. I knew we're going to have a great chat. And JM Cruz says, Papa Valkyrie, check out Helsing Ultimate. You'll enjoy it. That is absolutely on my list. Thank you, sweetheart. You guys are the best. Golgo 13, Brandon, tell everybody where we can find you and what's coming up for you.
Well, right now I'm on Twitter, Golgo13_BW. I pretty much just have the Twitter just to follow everybody within the fandom that I like, and anybody else that follows me, I typically will follow back. It's a great way to network with people and to keep up with what's going on, and to basically try to hold shenanigans accountable when shenanigans occur. I am working on getting my YouTube channel up and going. I've run some tests, got my nice microphone now. Hopefully I sound way better than I have in the past. And I'm not 100% for sure what type of topics or what slant I'm going to take with it, but stay tuned for that.
Awesome. So we've got some great content to look forward to. And guys, obviously when the channel is up and running, we will promote it and get it going, because that's what we do here. We help each other rise. And we've always said it before, if you want to get on YouTube, do it. The more voices, the better. That's what I always say.
Yeah, can never have too many voices. There's always something out there for everybody to enjoy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for today, Brandon. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you. Can't wait to have you back on. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, my love. I appreciate that.
Appreciate you. Big thank you to everyone who joined up today. You guys are amazing. A massive thank you to everybody who sent super chats and super stickers. Very much appreciated. I will be back on Sunday with another awesome guest. I won't tell you who it is just yet, but you'll soon find out when I put the stream up. And
look forward to it.
Other than that, I will be back Monday at 10 a.m. Central. So guys, have a fantastic weekend. You guys are amazing as always. Much love to you, and take care of each other. I think that's the best thing I can say. And read manga and watch anime.
Absolutely.
As we've
take care of each other.
Thank you guys. You take care.